welcome to our deep dive into early Christianity.
Oh, very exciting.
You sent in a video about Pope Sixtus
Oh,
of the seventh Pope,
okay.
and we're ready to unearth some of the fascinating historical and theological details inside.
Really exciting stuff.
Get ready for some power struggles, ancient
Right.
rituals, and maybe even a dash of heresy.
Sounds like a good time.
So,
It's a journey back to a pivotal time,
Right.
when Christianity was still finding its footing,
right.
and figures like Sixtus I were shaping the very foundations of the faith.
Okay, so let's set the stage a little bit.
Right.
We're talking about the years 117 to 127 AD,
Okay.
a time when Emperor Hadrian ruled Rome,
Right.
and Christians weren't exactly having a picnic.
Not the best of times.
Our source for this deep dive is a YouTube video by Luigi Gaudio,
Okay.
which draws on various historical and religious texts to paint a picture of Sixtus.
Interesting.
Even his name, which means polished or arranged, kind of hints at a personality navigating some pretty complex situations.
That's a great observation.
Mm.
It speaks to the delicate diplomacy early popes needed,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the tensions already brewing between the Western and Eastern branches of Christianity.
Wait, hold on. East versus West?
Yeah.
Weren't they all just Christians back then?
Wow.
What were they disagreeing on exactly?
You gotta imagine trying to unify a rapidly growing religion
Yeah.
across vast distances
Oh, yes.
with different cultures and interpretations starting to emerge.
Yeah.
Even something as fundamental as when to celebrate Easter became a point of contention
Oh, wow.
between Rome and Constantinople.
Okay.
These early disagreements foreshadowed the Great Schism, a major split that would divide the church centuries later.
So was Sixtus more of a peacemaker in all this, or was he kind of a hardliner?
He seems to have favored compromise,
Okay.
which makes sense given the pressure early popes faced.
Right.
Not only were they establishing church structure and doctrine,
Yeah.
they were also dealing with external threats from the Roman Empire.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a high-pressure job.
For sure.
And speaking of establishing authority,
Yes.
the video mentions 2 letters attributed to Sixtus Hour,
Okay.
one on the Trinity and another highlighting the primacy of the Bishop of Rome.
Interesting.
They may not be originals, but rather examples of what were called literi communionis,
Literi communionis.
basically letters of communion that traveling bishops would carry back to their communities, almost like an early form of papal decrees,
Yeah.
a prototype for how the Pope would guide and unify Christian communities across different regions.
It highlights the growing influence of the Roman bishop at this time.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting for me.
Okay.
Apparently, Sixtus I is also credited with establishing some key liturgical practices that are still around today.
Really?
For example, he's said to have introduced the practice of the entire congregation reciting the Sanctus together. Before that, it was just the priest.
That must have felt like a big change in those early services.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
It reflects a shift towards greater communal participation in worship, a hallmark of many Christian denominations even today.
Yeah.
Another practice attributed to him is the decree that only priests could touch the chalice during communion.
Oh, okay.
This emphasizes the sacredness of the Eucharist.
Yes.
And again, it gives us a glimpse into how the role of the Pope shaped the development of these rituals.
I see.
But it wasn't all about smooth liturgical transitions for Sixtus.
Oh, no.
He was also dealing with the rise of a movement called Gnosticism.
Gnosticism is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it reveals the diversity of thought and interpretation that existed even in early Christianity.
Yeah.
Gnostics believed that salvation came through gnosis, meaning knowledge.
Okay.
They incorporated elements of Greek and Roman philosophy into their belief system, creating a unique worldview that often clashed with what would become mainstream Christianity.
Yeah, the video mentions some pretty mind-bending Gnostic ideas,
Yeah.
things like the Pleroma, Eons, and Sophia. It's like they layered a whole other mythology onto Christianity.
They did.
Yeah.
The Pleroma, for example, was a sort of cosmic sphere mediating between the spiritual and material worlds,
Okay.
almost like a spiritual internet,
Yeah.
as you might say.
Okay.
And eons were divine emanations,
Okay.
each representing different aspects of the divine.
Interesting.
Then there was Sophia, a feminine figure representing wisdom.
Okay.
It's a complex system,
Yeah.
and it definitely challenged early Christian leaders.
Yeah, but the biggest point of friction seems to have been their view of Christ. right?
That's right.
They didn't exactly believe in the whole suffering servant idea.
They saw Christ as a purely spiritual being,
Oh,
like
yes.
I'm not truly human.
So not really a man at all.
This belief, known as Docetism, denied the reality of Christ's suffering and resurrection.
Okay.
Ultimately, the church condemned Docetism as heresy.
Right.
But these debates had a lasting impact,
Oh, yeah.
shaping the very definition of Christian orthodoxy, and continuing to resonate in theological circles today.
Wow.
You could even say that modern-day discussions about the nature of Christ are in some ways distant echoes of these early struggles to define who Jesus was.
It's amazing how these ancient debates still have such relevance.
Yeah.
So how did things end for Sixtus?
Sadly.
Yeah, he ended up a martyr, right?
Yes.
Despite Emperor Hadrian's relatively positive reputation, he was intolerant of certain religions, including Christianity.
Unfortunately, yes.
It seems ironic considering Hadrian is known for incredible building projects like Hadrian's Wall.
Right.
But I guess tolerance wasn't exactly a priority back then.
Not so much.
So Sixtus I was executed for his faith, highlighting the very real dangers faced by early Christians.
Sadly, yes.
But his story doesn't end there, does it?
Not at all.
His legacy is woven into the fabric of the church.
Right.
And even today, several cities in Italy claim to possess his relics,
Interesting.
leading to local traditions and even some friendly or maybe not so friendly rivalry. It's a testament to his enduring influence.
Yeah,
And to the enduring power of relics themselves.
for sure.
Which brings us to a great stopping point for part 1 of our deep dive.
That sounds good.
We've covered a lot of ground papal power plays, the complexities of Gnosticism, and the intense challenges facing early Christians under Roman rule.
Lots to think about.
And in part 2, we'll delve deeper into the impact of early Christianity on Roman society
Okay.
and explore the lasting legacy of figures like Sixtus.
Hug.
Looking forward to it.
So stay tuned.
I will.
We'll be right back with more fascinating insights from the world of early Christianity.
Can't wait.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of early Christianity and Pope Sixtus.
It's great to be back.
We've already unearthed some fascinating details about the challenges and triumphs of this period,
Definitely.
from navigating the tricky waters of papal authority
Right.
to confronting alternative beliefs like Gnosticism.
Yeah.
It's clear those early Christians had their work cut out for them.
For sure.
But let's shift gears a bit.
I'm curious about how early Christianity actually functioned within Roman society.
Yeah, that's a great question.
After all, during Sixtus I's time, it was still a relatively new and misunderstood religion.
Right, it was a complex dynamic.
It's easy to forget, with Christianity being such a dominant force for so long,
Yeah,
that it was once viewed with suspicion and fear
absolutely.
by many in Roman society.
Yeah, they were seen as kind of a dangerous sect, almost like an underground movement.
Really?
Their refusal to worship the Roman gods was seen as a direct threat to the stability of the empire.
Oh, wow.
And of course, there were those wild rumors circulating about their secret ritual.
You mean the stories about cannibalism and orgies?
Exactly, those
I
ones.
mean, we know those are gross distortions of Christian practices like the Eucharist,
Right,
but it really underscores the level of fear and misunderstanding surrounding this new faith.
definitely.
So how did early Christians navigate this hostile environment? Were
Right.
they constantly hiding in the shadows, living in fear of persecution?
While there were certainly periods of intense persecution, like we saw with Sixtus I's martyrdom,
Right.
many early Christians found ways to live and worship relatively openly within Roman society.
So it wasn't all doom and gloom.
No, not at all. It wasn't always easy,
Yeah.
but their faith was a driving force in their lives.
You know, I always picture those dramatic scenes of gladiators battling lions in the Colosseum when I think about early Christians in Rome.
I know what you mean.
Was that a common occurrence, or is that more Hollywood embellishment?
While those stories certainly capture the brutality of Roman persecution,
Yeah.
they represent a very small fraction of the Christian experience.
Not every Sunday.
Many Christians lived relatively normal lives,
Okay.
working, raising families, and practicing their faith within their communities.
So maybe not an organized rebellion against Rome,
Right.
but their beliefs did challenge the existing social order in some pretty fundamental ways, right?
Well, absolutely. Their emphasis on charity and community was a big factor.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, early Christians were known for their care for the poor, the sick, and the marginalized.
I see.
This stood in stark contrast to the often brutal and hierarchical nature of Roman society, where power and wealth were paramount.
So in a way, they were kind of like the ancient world's social justice warriors,
You could say that.
living out their faith through acts of service and compassion.
That's a good way to put it.
And I imagine their message of hope and salvation resonated with many who felt disenfranchised or disillusioned by the Roman system.
Absolutely.
Kind of a spiritual lifeline in a world that could be pretty harsh.
Christianity offered a spiritual alternative to the often empty rituals and power struggles of the Roman state religion.
Right.
It provided a sense of meaning and purpose that resonated with people from all walks of life.
Really?
The poor, the wealthy, even those within the Roman elite.
It's amazing how a group that started as a small, persecuted sect could eventually grow into such a powerful force.
It is quite a transformation.
It speaks to the power of ideas, the human need for spiritual connection, and the courage of those early believers who refused to be silenced.
I couldn't agree more.
Even in the face of adversity, the message of Christianity spread across the Roman Empire, planting the seeds for its eventual rise to prominence.
It's a powerful story.
That brings us to another question I've been pondering.
Okay.
What about the lasting legacy of figures like Sixtus? We've talked about his role in shaping early church practices.
Yes.
But what kind of long-term impact did these early popes have on the development of the church as a whole?
Well, their influence was profound.
In what way?
As we discussed earlier, Sixtus I played a key role in establishing papal authority,
Right.
standardizing liturgical practices, and defining Christian orthodoxy.
I see.
These actions weren't just about his time.
Right.
They laid the groundwork for the papacy as we know it today.
So he was kind of like a papal trailblazer, setting precedents and forging a path for all the popes who came after him.
Exactly.
That's quite a legacy.
His efforts, along with those of other early popes,
Yeah.
helped to shape the structure, doctrine, and rituals of the church, creating a foundation that would endure for centuries.
Wow.
It's amazing to think about how those individuals living in such a different world could have such a lasting impact on history.
It really makes you wonder,
What's that?
what about our own time?
Yeah.
What seemingly insignificant choices or objects from our lives might become relics in the future,
Ooh, that's a fascinating question.
imbued with a meaning we can't even fathom right now?
Perhaps a tweet from a social media influencer that sparked a movement,
Okay.
or a piece of technology that revolutionized the way we communicate.
Right.
Something that seems commonplace to us today, but will hold a completely different significance in the future.
Who knows? Maybe someday people will be studying our lives and trying to decipher the meaning of our relics,
That would be something.
just as we're trying to understand the legacy of Sixtus I today.
I like it.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the world of early Christianity.
Glad to be here.
We've journeyed through the turbulent times of Pope Sixtus.
Right.
I explored complex theological debates
Absolutely.
and seen how this early period shaped so much of Christian tradition.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
But now it's time to tackle a topic that I find particularly intriguing:
Okay.
the enduring power of relics.
It's truly remarkable how these physical objects,
Yeah.
often fragments of bone or clothing,
Right.
hold such deep significance for believers.
In the case of Sixtus, we have multiple cities in Italy claiming to possess his relics,
That's right.
each with their own unique traditions and stories woven around them.
Exactly.
It's like a real-life historical mystery, but with a spiritual dimension layered on top.
I like that.
What is it about these relics that inspires such fervor and devotion? Why are they so important to the faithful?
I think it comes down to a very human need for connection.
Okay.
Relics offer a tangible link to the past,
Right.
a physical connection to individuals who are revered for their holiness,
I see.
or their role in shaping religious history.
So it's not just about the object itself,
No.
but the belief in the power it holds, the connection it provides to something greater than ourselves.
Exactly.
I imagine that having multiple cities claim to possess Sixtus Spricca's relics only adds to their mystique and allure.
It certainly does.
It's almost like a competition for spiritual bragging rights.
These competing claims often lead to the development of local legends and traditions,
Oh, wow.
each emphasizing the unique connection between their community and the revered figure.
Yeah.
The relics become woven into the very fabric of their identity.
That's interesting.
It's a source of local pride and a testament to the power of belief.
It's fascinating how something that could be seen as divisive, this competition over relics, can actually strengthen a sense of community within each city.
Absolutely. These relics become focal points for communal rituals, processions, and celebrations.
I see.
They reinforce a shared history, a collective sense of faith,
Right.
and a connection to something larger than themselves.
It's a reminder that religion is often as much about social bonds and shared narratives as it is about individual belief.
For sure.
This whole discussion has me wondering, what seemingly insignificant choices or objects from our own time might become relics in the future?
Now that's a thought-provoking question.
What will people point to centuries from now and say, this object represents a turning point, a moment of profound change?
Perhaps a handwritten note from a leader who changed the course of history.
Okay.
A piece of technology that revolutionized communication.
Right.
Or even an everyday object imbued with symbolic meaning through a momentous event.
It's a reminder that history is constantly being written.
Yeah.
And what seems mundane to us today might one day become a treasured artifact imbued with stories and significance we can't even imagine right now.
Exactly.
It's like we're leaving our own relics behind without even realizing it, shaping the narratives that future generations will inherit.
Just as Sixtus I's legacy continues to resonate through the veneration of his relics, so too will our own actions and choices leave an imprint on the future. Wow.
We are all part of this ongoing story shaping the world that future generations will inhabit.
What a powerful thought to end on.
It really is.
We've covered so much ground in our deep dive into early Christianity.
Yeah, we have.
From papal power struggles to ancient heresies and now to the enduring power of relics.
It's been quite a journey.
It's been a fascinating journey, revealing the lasting influence of this early period on the faith and traditions of millions around the world.
I agree.
It has been a privilege to explore this rich tapestry of history, theology, and human experience with you.
Likewise.
And who knows what other mysteries and revelations await us in future deep dives.
I can't wait to find out.
So, dear listener, as you go about your day, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those hidden connections that weave together the past, present, and future.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy diving.